Belief, faith and conviction. Where is your belief or faith? Is it in people, science or nature? Hello, my name is Paul Harvey and I am a midlife coach, and you are listening to a life, passion and business shortcast. Now, over the last few years I have spoken to hundreds of people and I've discovered that our story is everything, because what we do, feel or experience is based on the stories that we tell ourselves. This shortcast is a bite-sized episode to explore the ingredients of a good life. We bring out the thoughts, tips and tools so you can try them on for size. So let's explore and see what is possible. For many, faith is part of the higher power, a guiding force that oversees it all. For others, it's a conviction, a belief in a system, politics or law. Do you know, humans are the only animals on the planet that choose to believe or have a faith, to discuss it and explore it and seek people who share those thoughts and convictions. In this podcast, we're exploring belief and faith because without it we are lost, and yet with it we may get lost. When asked about these words, most people will consider the question theological. And while that was once true, our world systems have complicated that question so much. It is said that faith has the power to move mountains, and there are countless historical examples where faith has made a difference. But playing devil's advocate with my own argument here, that is not completely true. As we all know, where faith has been successful, but failures of faith don't count because we don't count them. I'm going to come back to that point. But let's explore the foundations of faith. A few weeks back on Easter Monday, at the biggest Christian festival, the Pope Francis passed. And for millions of Catholics worldwide, the Pope was the earthbound embodiment of their faith. He's their leader, representing God on earth and speaking for their faith. And it's a great sadness for them and a time for reflection. A new leader in the Vatican will bring change, but their faith will be unbroken. Now, Catholicism is a strong religion with an estimated 1.39 billion people that follow its doctrines, and yet that faith growth is mainly coming from developing nations. Over this last week, I was listening to a podcast with the Australian Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese. He was speaking about his early life in Australia, where everyone was expected to hold three pillars: follow their favourite football team, go to church and support the Labour Party. The point is that faith and belief have been the foundation of all societies since the beginning of human development. In the book Sapiens by Yuval Noah Harari, he speaks of the value of a shared belief as a bedrock of a stable society, where shared beliefs and values made trust, and from there everything else was possible. And that is as true today as it's always been. Most people believe in something with as much commitment. And that is the point. The last 50 years have seen a shift in religious faith, particularly in the UK. I cannot speak for other areas of the world from my experience, but I understand that the commitment to establish faiths and religions across the developed world has waned. The UK, for example, in the last census of 56 million people, 46.6% identified as Christian. And that was 13% down on the previous 10 years. And 37.2% said they had no religion, and that was 12% up on the previous count. And some would say that leaves a vacuum in the soul, but maybe so. But it does not mean that belief has diminished. It just means that what we choose to believe has changed. In that same census, a significant number of people put Jedi as in the other faith box. Okay, now statistics can prove or disprove anything. But we can all see that life, while easier than it was 50 years ago, has become more complex because there's no shortage of information. Not all of it true, not all of it without agenda. We are free to explore it all, but we're now responsible for choosing and deciding what we want to believe and where we put our faith. 50 years ago, the priest in the pulpit gave people all they needed to know about the meaning of life and their place in it. And now we have to make that decision for ourselves. Now, in that Jedi box on the official form, it was a belief that there might be a force throughout nature that we could all tap into, and that's a very seductive idea. But at the end of the day, it's back to the search for meaning. People are casting the net far wider in their search for something. So here's a question for you. When does a thought become a belief? And at what point does faith sit in between the two? In our last podcast, we explored the difference between habits and rituals, and that exploration ties in so well with this faith and belief conversation. From my experience with this podcast and the exploration I've done with various people, humans are driven by the search for meaning. We need to know that what we're doing has purpose, and there's a greater part or value to it, and that comes from having a belief in something. When we believe it's worthwhile doing, it gives value and meaning. So have a thought, give it time and energy, make it important, and it will become a belief. Now have faith in the outcome, and that is the foundation of a faith or a religion. When we make the choice to believe in something, it is a choice, but when we actually commit to believing it, then we invest in it and we put energy into the idea and give it value. And it's that investment that makes the difference between a thought and a belief. Now what is fascinating when we explore what's going on in the world of politics at the moment, the level of conviction and polarity in these politics is so close to religious. Climate change is another example, and the same can be said for many of the big issues facing humanity. Let me test this for you a bit. A believer will hold a faith regardless of the hardship holding that faith will mean. Here's the point: they choose to hold it as true and see challenge as a test of their conviction, and they stand by it. Now, we saw this in UK politics a few years ago. Boris Johnson was a known rogue who lied and cheated regularly in public and private life, and yet his followers could see him do no wrong. They would allow for his lies and misdemeanours, and they were convinced that he was Boris, he was a great guy, and he was going to lead them to the brave new post-European world. And look how well that worked out. President Trump has said that tariffs will hurt and be a short-term pain, but they will be magical. And his believers are saying, yes, this is going to hurt, but it's going to be worth it, while at the same time they're losing jobs and getting laid off. They believe in the course the president has set, and they believe in his leadership. What all believers have in common is the sunk cost, the investment of time, energy and possibility, money even maybe, or even loss of faith. When we change a belief, we must accept that what went before is lost. And that is where a belief holds, because we don't want to accept that loss. But it does happen all the time. And it may be why religious faith is so strong compared to political faith. Religion is a set of high values that are between you and a higher power. A political faith is a path or direction that centres around human ideology, and that can shift. So what does all this mean to you? How do we take you forward with this stuff? Well, the question is, first of all, what do you believe in? And does it serve you? Now, this is a journal exercise because it needs to be written down and reviewed. Some of what you will write will need to be considered and thought over. Belief is powerful stuff. It is the difference between success and failure, because if you do not believe you can achieve something, you will be right. But some beliefs do not serve us, and it's worth the time and effort to quantify and write down our beliefs. I used to hold beliefs about money and my value, and it made it hard to charge my full worth. I'm pretty much over that, and there are times when I'm not, but I'm still working on it. Getting back to this harsh world in which we're living, it's an information soup where belief and ideology get mixed up, and it can be a bitter pill. There are some very harsh viewpoints entering political discourse, things that I thought I would never see us returning to. So where is the boundary in that conversation for you? Having these thoughts with yourself and your journal can bring you to a point of clarity, so that when you know your own mind and you don't get swayed by charismatics. Because that is why I think we need to test our beliefs to be sure we know where we stand. The problem is, good people do bad things for good reasons, and that is a slippery slope. When we know where we stand, we know when it's time to take a stand, and that, in the coming years, will be critical. There's a lot of crossover here with values, and like everything else we talk about, it's always interconnected. But knowing your beliefs, knowing what you stand for, is fundamental to getting what you want in this world, and not getting taken in by charlatans, that's for sure. Anyway, as always, thank you so much for your time in exploring this conversation with me. If you found it interesting or useful, please share it with a friend. If you want to get to me and have a conversation about it, please do. Love to have those conversations. If you want to know more about the work at Life, Passion and Business, do check out the website, the Resources tab, where you will find more details about focus coaching and the other services that we offer. If you have liked this podcast, do share it with friends. If you want to write a comment on it, even better, give us some stars, because we like stars. Anyway, thanks so much for your time and attention. I will catch you next time. All the best.